Hey, folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University. Wanted to give you a couple of quick tips here when you're doing squats and lunges, and it has to do with your foot position. So, quite often when you're training your clients, you're making a decision, as to where the foot should be positioned as far as further out or closer in. You're probably even turning the toes out or turning them in. Now, look, when you're doing a lunge, obviously, there's not going to be a whole lot of foot movement. But here's the tip I want you to kind of consider is where are you putting the weight on the foot itself? Remember, and I'm going to use my hand as an example, but your foot when it's on the ground has the ability to go through different ranges of motion, right? Through the sagittal, through the frontal, even through the transverse plane. So when you're training your clients, always keep in mind that if they are not feeling it in their quads, because look, that's the whole point of doing the exercise. And that's why I'm giving you this one main tip is to think about it. If your client, while they're doing either squats or lunges, if they're feeling it in their quads, you're probably good to go. But make sure they are, right? Don't just ask them, do you feel it in your quads? Because they might feel it right above the knee. They might feel it in their hip, and they kind of think, yeah, I feel it. Got to point to it. Point to that area and say, do you feel it right here, right with the in the meaty part of the quadricep? And if they go, oh yeah, I feel it right there with no pain or issues in their knee or their hips or even their ankle, you're good to go. However, you know as well as I do that there are clients that you're training where if you ask them, do you feel it here? Do you feel it right there? They'll say no. I feel it more than likely in my knee. Some folks will actually feel it in their ankles, they'll feel it in their calves, they'll feel it in their lower back. All I'm going to talk to you about today is how to deal with it if they're not feeling it in their quads. And generally, they're feeling it in their knee. And this is where the foot positioning comes in. Remember, the foot planted on the ground, like I said, you can put and you got to think about doing this and cueing your client into this, but do it carefully. With squats, it's not as big of a deal as it is with lunges. With lunges, because it's 1 foot forward, you have a balancing issue when you try and actually put the weight of your body off to the side, to the outside of the foot, or to the inside of the foot up on the big toe. And that is the tip. Think about this. When you're doing squats, you've been told sit back on your heels, right? You should almost be able to, you don't want to do it, but you should almost be able to lift your toes up. The weight should be on your heels in general. So if somebody's not feeling it in their quadriceps while they're doing squats, for instance, or during a lunge, normally what I'll have them do is I'll say, go ahead and put your feet a little wider apart, maybe, but then sit your weight back, right? So the tip is to always make a modification to where the client is sitting their weight, either on their heels or, believe it or not, in some cases, much less frequency of this, but in some cases clients will actually feel it more if they lean into it and actually put the weight on their toe. I've seen it happen. It's very rare, but it does happen. So generally weight goes back on the heel. This sits the hips back a little bit further and allows for the weight to be pushed a little bit further back. It increases the torque at the knee, which is what the quadriceps are working over, right? So weight back on the heel, hips tend to sit back a little bit, right? That increases the torque on the knee, and you get more quadricep involvement. Sometimes, though, due to whatever bizarre biomechanics your client has, if they go on their toes, they may feel it. But here's the other thing now to consider. It's not just movement in the sagittal plane, right? Forward, backwards, toes or heels. Guess what else you can do? This is it. You may want to write this down. You can actually tell your client, and this works really, really well on squats. Be very, very careful if you ever try this doing lunges. I've done it, but you got to be really careful. It's eversion and inversion of the foot. If you remember some of those terms are, it simply means turning the bottom of your foot inward or the bottom of your foot outward. So eversion and inversion, right? So basically what you tell your clients, and you got to be very subtle with this movement, is you can just let them know when they're sitting back on their heels, for instance, just have them shift their weight slightly. And you watch, look what I'm doing with my hands. Just shift the weight slightly on the outside of their feet, very, very slightly. And you're going to notice they're going to feel it quite a bit more in their quadriceps. And what do you do, for instance, when they go forward on their toes? Sometimes you can have them put the weight on their big toe, right? The biggest toe of the foot. And if they do that without turning knees, and you got to remember, that's what I'm saying, be very careful and subtle with this. If you start to see that the knees start to come in, then don't do it. But if you can get your client as they put their weight forward slightly or flat on the ground, you can actually have them kind of turn in just a little bit and put the weight on their big toe of their foot. You might find that that makes all the difference in the world. Remember, be very, very careful. The biomechanics of this can also cause imbalance and some discomfort at the knee if it's done incorrectly. So why are we doing this? Because they're not feeling it in that particular muscle. So now you've got to modify what? The biomechanics. Remember, at the end of all that, if it's still not working, you can change the range of motion, move the feet wider or closer in, turn the toes out or in. I'm just showing you this little subtle movement opportunity you have at the ankle itself to get the feet to turn out a little bit or turn in a bit. And I hope this is helpful. If you got any suggestions or comments, please leave them below. And remember to subscribe to our channel, hit the bell so that you can get the notifications. And as always, let us know how we can be of help and assistance. At Body Design University, we're here to help you to become industry leading personal trainers. Have a great weekend. See you.